Chapter 122, Difference in Strength. Chapter 122, Difference in Strength. 2 dozen refinement realm experts. Rampant Blade's expression grew somber when he saw World Dominators' experts charging toward Blackie and Su Qianliu's party. He didn't think that Gu Iran's team members would be this powerful. It was true that Su Qianliu and Blackie were considered experts even by first-rate guild standards. It was especially true for Su Qianliu. Not only did she reach the refinement realm long ago, but it was even rumored that she had reached the flowing water realm already. However, even a flowing water realm expert would find it difficult to go up against 2 dozen refinement realm experts simultaneously. Not to mention, these were refinement realm experts from World Dominators, a super guild. Not only did they have much better training, but they were also fully equipped with epic weapons and equipment. You overconfident fools. Do you think World Dominators will hold back against you? Luo Tiancheng couldn't help but sneer as he looked at Shi Feng's party. World Dominators was a super guild. There was no way it would sit by and watch as one of its affiliated guilds got targeted. It would become a joke in God's domain if it did that. The 2 dozen refinement realm experts reached within 50 yards of Shi Feng's party in the blink of an eye. Then, every one of them began revealing their strongest moves, none of them intending to hold back or play around with Shi Feng's party. At a glance, one could tell that these were all veteran experts with real experiences clashing with other players. Restrict them. In response to the 2 dozen refinement realm experts' assault, Blackie waved his staff and cast a spell without chanting an incantation. Even the mana fluctuations that came from him were incredibly weak. Boom! Along with a loud bang, several hundred shadow vines emerged from the ground beneath the 2 dozen refinement realm experts' feet. In addition, from start to end, none of the shadow vines radiated any mana fluctuations, the appearance of these vines swift and silent. What? Double speed casting? Rampant Blade was shocked when he saw Blackie's attack. He felt as if he was coming to know Blackie for the first time. Double speed casting. This was a spellcasting technique that only an extremely few magical class experts could master. Even most refinement realm experts were incapable of such a feat yet. Now, not only did Blackie effortlessly execute a double speed casting, but his mana control was so excellent that he had leaked hardly any mana throughout the entire spellcasting process. The level of technique Blackie had just displayed was something even flowing water realm experts could not accomplish. Similar to Rampant Blade, the 2 dozen refinement realm experts were similarly caught off guard by Blackie's response. The speed of spells might not be as fast as melee attacks, but spells made up for their lack of speed with numbers. Meanwhile, the countermeasure experts had developed to counter offensive spells with a large number of attacks was to detect the mana fluctuations caused by the spell targeted at them and take evasive measures in advance. However, if a spell gave off no mana fluctuations during its formation, it'd be nigh impossible to dodge it preemptively. In such a scenario, the only response one could make was to prepare oneself to block the spell. The next moment, the several hundred shadow vines lashed out at the refinement realm experts simultaneously, causing these experts to lose at least 1/3 of their HP. Some had even lost half of their HP. The appearances of these experts were also reduced to a mess, and they looked nothing like an expert team from World Dominators. What a powerful magical class expert! Blue Sheath, who was spectating the battle from a distant treetop, couldn't help but focus her gaze on Blackie. World Dominators' refinement realm experts all possessed strength rivaling Grand Lords of the same level. Yet, even though these experts had blocked the shadow vines attacking them, they had still lost over 1/3 of their HP. In God's domain, the power of spells relied on 2 factors. If you have problems with this website, please continue reading your novel on our new website mynovelful.com. Thanks. The first factor was the player's basic attributes, while the other factor was the spell's completion rate. Of these 2 factors, the latter played an especially important role. With a sufficiently high spell completion rate, one spell could exhibit power several magnitudes greater than a similar spell cast by a player with the exact same basic attributes. Although Blackie's aura felt extraordinary in Blue Sheath's eyes, it was, at most, on par with World Dominators' refinement realm experts. This meant that both sides should possess roughly similar basic attributes. Thus, The reason Blackie managed to cause so much damage to those refinement realm experts despite this fact must mean that his spell completion rate was extremely high. Impossible. Luo Tiancheng's eyes bulged when he saw the effect of Blackie's spell. How did he get so strong? The 24 refinement realm experts made up a frightening force. Yet, with just a simple wave of his staff, Blackie had not only stopped these 24 refinement realm experts' assault, but he had even reduced them into a miserable mess. Luo Tiancheng was fully aware of Blackie's standards. Back when Blackie was still with Shadow, he had only been a member of the guild's middle management. Moreover, he was focused mainly on handling guild affairs, and his combat standard was only at the level of first-rate experts. He couldn't even be considered one of the top-ranking experts in the guild. Yet, what was with this situation? Meanwhile, after Shifeng took a look at World Dominators' refinement realm experts, he turned toward Happy Snow the Berserker and said, "Go and help Blackie. It'll be tough for him to deal with these people alone." After all was said and done, Blackie still hadn't reached the refinement realm standard. While he might have a gold mana body, the Holy Annihilation mana technique, and the ancient mana equipment set helping him, he could still die easily if he got caught in a melee or targeted by numerous ranged attacks. Simply put, Blackie was currently a glass cannon. He might have astonishing offensive capabilities, but he wouldn't last more than a few moves in an actual duel with a refinement realm expert. Fine, then. I'll use these guys to test my recent improvements, Happy Snow said, curling her lips in dissatisfaction. Immediately, Happy Snow unsheathed the two-handed saber hung on her back. Then, in the blink of an eye, she instantly appeared amidst the 24 refinement realm experts, her speed superior to even assassins of the same level. Subsequently, before World Dominators' refinement realm experts could react, Happy Snow swung her massive saber at the nearest shield warrior. Advanced combat technique, Wolf Pack. Happy Snow's saber instantly transformed into 5 phantom wolves that pounced at the shield warrior. However, the shield warrior was no pushover. Although he had reacted slowly to Happy Snow's appearance, as soon as he noticed Happy Snow attacking him, he promptly raised his shield and activated the Tier 3 defensive skill Iron Wall. Aside from increasing his defense by 200% and reaction speed by 50%, the skill also reduced the numbing effects he suffered by 100%. Other than the shield warrior, a nearby oracle also quickly reacted to Happy Snow's attack. Immediately, the oracle cast a defensive barrier on the shield warrior, the barrier nearly doubling the shield warrior's maximum HP boom. When the first phantom wolf collided with the shield warrior's shield, the shield warrior stumbled one step backward and nearly lost his balance. As a result, when the second phantom wolf struck, the shield warrior promptly lost his balance and fell on his back. Immediately afterward, the third, fourth, and fifth phantom wolves pounced on the shield warrior afterward, instantly tearing through the oracle's barrier and reducing the shield warrior's HP to 0. The shield warrior had died so quickly that the nearby healers didn't even have time to heal him. She killed him in one move. Rampant Blade couldn't help but gape in shock when he saw Happy Snow killing the shield warrior after just one exchange. Rampant Blade had seen Happy Snow before, and he knew that the little girl had only reached the refinement realm recently. Yet, now, she had instantly killed a veteran refinement realm expert. It was simply unbelievable. Not bad. I like this feeling, Happy Snow stated excitedly as she looked at the shield warrior's vanishing body. Not only did the ancient mana equipment set increase her skill completion rate, but it had also improved the density of her mana and her control over mana. Because of this, she had a much easier time executing combat techniques, and she became able to execute Wolf Pack effortlessly. If it was before she acquired this set, she wouldn't have been able to make use of the advanced combat technique in actual combat. Of course, the ancient mana equipment set wasn't the only factor contributing to her success. A more important factor was the ancient god's blood Shifeng had given to her. Thanks to the ancient god's blood, her mana body had also reached the gold rank. Moreover, it was even a peak gold mana body. This improvement had cleared up her mind significantly, and she could now execute combat techniques much more efficiently. Previously, she could only create 4 phantom wolves when executing Wolf Pack. Moreover, it was also under a practice setting. Now, not only could she freely execute the combat technique in battle, but she could even create 5 phantom wolves with it. What power! Is she a monster? When the other experts from World Dominators saw their companion getting killed, they couldn't help but gulp nervously. If Happy Snow could kill even a shield warrior in one move, it went without saying that she could do the same for other classes. To make matters worse, they still had to keep an eye out for Blackie's ranged attacks. If they received a direct hit from one of Blackie's spells, they wouldn't even know how they died. Meanwhile, seeing World Dominators' experts growing cautious, Shifeng asked, "Do you still want to continue? If you find any errors, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know so we can fix it as soon as possible." Chapter 123, One Sword for Thousands. Chapter 123, One Sword for Thousands. Although Shifeng spoke in a calm and low voice, nobody present dared to underestimate him. Previously, everyone thought that Shifeng was simply spouting nonsense when he said that just the 5 of them were enough. However, after seeing Blackie's and Happy Snow's overwhelming performance, nobody doubted Shifeng's words anymore. The combat power Blackie and Happy Snow displayed was something only Apex experts could exhibit in the current miniature ancient world. 24 refinement realm experts couldn't even serve as a warm-up for these 2 players. Only the various super guilds Apex experts could possibly fight the 2 of them. It seems Zero Wing cannot be underestimated. Despite being a new guild, it has so many powerful experts. Indeed. But World Dominators isn't a pushover, either. With only 5 players, Zero Wing will still have difficulty targeting Shadows members. Faced with this sudden turn of events, the various large guilds experts couldn't help but turn toward Gu Iran. Currently, Gu Iran still held the initiative in his hands. After all, World Dominators currently had the entire New Moon Forest on lockdown. Now, it was up to him to decide whether they would fight or not. If Gu Iran chose to fight, his side would most likely sustain severe losses, and his progress in the miniature ancient world would slow down significantly. However, if Gu Iran chose not to fight, his reputation among World Dominators' various affiliated guilds would most likely plummet. His actions might even end up affecting World Dominators' prestige. 2 experts with Apex level strength, is it? I can see why you dare to behave so boldly, Gu Iran said as he looked at Shifeng coldly. However, don't forget where this place is. Apex experts might be powerful, but they aren't invincible in the miniature ancient world. As soon as Gu Iran finished speaking, the various guilds experts promptly advanced and got ready for battle, their numbers exceeding 2,000. Aside from first-rate experts, there were also some refinement realm and half-step refinement realm experts among these 2,000-plus players. Even if they were up against 2 experts with Apex level strength, they could rely on Zerg tactics to whittle down and kill the opponent. After all, there was a limit to a player's stamina and concentration. Take Happy Snow, for example. While it was true that she had killed a shield warrior in one move, she had done so with the help of an advanced combat technique, something that cost a significant amount of stamina and concentration to use. How about giving up now, mister? Nobody can annihilate Shadow today. Dao Yue, who stood behind Gu Iran this entire time, suddenly stepped forward to advise Shifeng. World Dominators has similarly dispatched Apex experts to the New Moon Forest. If the battle drags out, you won't even have the chance to escape later. The various guilds experts also nodded in agreement with Dao Yue's words. In reality, none of them wished to fight against Shifeng's group of 5. However, Gu Iran had already made himself clear that he wouldn't let Shifeng touch Shadow. Thus, even if it meant dying and losing a level, they needed to stop Shifeng's party. Otherwise, World Dominators would make it so that they couldn't continue surviving in God's domain. So what you're saying is, instead of answering Dao Yue's question, Shifeng smiled and asked, "You're not going to give way?" "You can think of it that way," Dao Yue said nonchalantly. If she came across Shifeng's party under normal circumstances, she absolutely wouldn't dare to antagonize them at all. This was because her guild wouldn't go out of its way to target a domain realm expert for her sake alone. However, she was currently working under Zhuo Tianquang's orders, and they were also currently in the middle of a guild war. If Shifeng's party killed them, their guild would definitely avenge them for the sake of its reputation. Not to mention, So long as Shifeng's party dared make a move, she would promptly contact Zhuo Qianquang and notify him about the situation here. With a force of over 2,000 first-rate experts, they had more than enough fodder to keep Shifeng's party busy until Zhuo Qianquang and the other Apex experts arrived. If you have problems with this website, please continue reading your novel on our new website mynovelful.com. Thanks. In that case, you can be buried together with Shadow. Shifeng absolutely wouldn't let go of this opportunity to heavily damage Shadow. Immediately, he unsheathed the Winter of Eternal Night and enveloped the many experts present in his mana domain. A mana domain? How does he have a mana domain at Tier 3? The various large guilds' experts were dumbfounded when they felt Shifeng's frightening mana enveloping their bodies. Disappear. Shifeng swung the Winter of Eternal Night horizontally. Second sword, Holy Devour. Even with the ancient mana equipment set's bonuses, it was still a significant burden for Shifeng to execute Holy Devour. If he tried to execute Holy Devour at full power, he could, at most, use it 3 times in a battle. After 3 executions, he would immediately fall into a mentally weakened state. Thus, this was a trump card he wouldn't casually use under normal circumstances. However, out of all the attacks in Shifeng's repertoire, Holy Devour had the largest AoE. Shifeng was only a Tier 3 player right now. If he had to kill 2,000 plus first-rate experts one by one, he'd die from exhaustion before he could even get rid of all of them. Thus, the best solution was to use an attack with a big AoE and reduce the enemy's numbers as much as possible. Then, he would leave the rest for Su Qianliu and the others to deal with. Not good. Meanwhile, when Blue Sheath saw the sudden change in Shifeng's aura, she instinctively executed Shadow Walk, an advanced combat technique, and distanced herself from the battlefield. She had also activated Shadow Flash, a Tier 3 life-saving skill that increased her movement speed by 300% for 5 seconds. While retreating, though, she kept a constant look over the battlefield, ensuring she didn't miss out on anything. The next moment, before Blue Sheath could move even 100 yards away from her previous location, a scorching light suddenly enveloped her vision, the light incinerating everything in its path and shattering even space itself. This, Blue Sheath was dumbfounded. One attack. It was only one attack. With just one attack, Shifeng had extinguished the lives of nearly half of the 2,000 plus experts, erasing even their ashes from the battlefield. TL notes: 1. Apex experts and experts with apex level strength. Apex experts refer to domain realm experts. Experts with apex level strength refer to expert players capable of exhibiting the raw power of domain realm experts. They aren't necessarily domain realm experts, though. If you find any errors, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 124, End of an Era. Chapter 124, End of an Era. What is this? Isn't he just Tier 3? How can he have such power? He can already shatter space at Tier 3. Could he be a god-ranked expert? When the experts caught outside of Shifeng's mana domain saw the fragmented void in front of them, they couldn't help but be dumbfounded. They had seen experts shattering space with their attacks before. On the main continent, any Tier 4 expert could easily accomplish such a feat. Some of them even used to be Tier 4 experts on the main continent. However, the miniature ancient world had only opened recently. It was impossible for players to even reach level 120 at this stage of the game, let alone Tier 4. Yet, the cloaked man before them had accomplished a feat that could typically only be accomplished by Tier 4 players. With just one singular attack, he had exhibited power on par with Tier 4 taboo skills at Tier 3. At this moment, there was only one plausible explanation everyone could come up with for this unbelievable situation. A Tier 6 god-ranked expert. An existence capable of turning the impossible possible. Shadow is really finished this time. When Rampant Blade saw Shadow's experts disappearing without a trace, he couldn't help but turn to look at the proud figures of Su Qianliu and the others, his eyes full of bitterness and lamentation. In the past, he used to hold the same position as Su Qianliu as one of Shadow's 5 demon generals. Yet, in the time it took him to reach the refinement realm, Su Qianliu and Blackie had already become existences that even world dominators found tricky to deal with. The two of them were even capable of killing refinement realm experts like ants. In reality, Rampant Blade had felt that Shifeng was joking when he heard about the other party's declaration to erase Shadow from God's domain. After all, there was simply too significant of a gap between Shadow and Zero Wing. Now, however, over 80% of the experts Shadow had dispatched to the miniature ancient world had just been killed. On the surface, it might seem as if these experts had just lost a level and a piece of equipment. However, in the current state of the miniature ancient world, this was an irrecoverable loss. After all, these experts were all geared with top-tier weapons and equipment that Shadow had paid a huge price to procure. It wouldn't be an easy task to replace all of these items. Meanwhile, before they could recover these lost items, Shadow would be much more restricted in what it could do in the miniature ancient world. Needless to say, it'd also be impossible for Shadow's experts to catch up to the experts of other guilds in terms of levels. Simply put, Shadow had already lost its initiative in the miniature ancient world. It had already been kicked off the front lines and lost the opportunity to contest crucial resources. Naturally, all of the investments it had made thus far were also for naught. However, these losses still weren't the biggest problem. The biggest problem Shadow now faced was Zero Wing's Tier 6 God-ranked expert. If it were before the Secret Pavilion's recent move, it wouldn't have been a significant problem for Shadow to be targeted by a Tier 6 God-ranked expert. After all, the God-ranked expert in question wasn't on the main continent. Meanwhile, Shadow's main source of income remained on the main continent. However, the various powers of God's domain were currently frantically competing for the miniature ancient world's resources. Among these powers, there were bound to be some who wouldn't mind destroying Shadow, both on the main continent and in the miniature ancient world, if they could gain a Tier 6 God-ranked expert's favor. Not to mention, they could also reduce the number of competition they needed to face in God's domain. Meanwhile, in the distant forest, Blue Sheath couldn't help but sigh in relief when she saw that Shifeng had stopped attacking. What rotten luck! I nearly got killed just now, Blue Sheath muttered under her breath. The attack just now had triggered all of her danger senses, and she felt as if her life was hanging by a thread. It had already been many years since she had experienced such a feeling. What the hell is Shadow thinking? Even world dominators wouldn't dare to recklessly provoke a God-ranked expert. But after this mess, world dominators will have no choice but to pick a fight with this God-ranked expert. If you have problems with this website, please continue reading your novel on our new website mynovelful.com. Thanks. The experts of one of World Dominators' affiliated guilds had just been annihilated. Even if World Dominators was reluctant to, it would have no choice but to go after Zero Wing. Otherwise, it had become a laughingstock among the various powers, and no power would be willing to attach themselves to it. Meanwhile, during the time Blue Sheath was resting, sounds of battle suddenly came from a different location. Moreover, these sounds were rather loud, and Blue Sheath could hear them clearly even though the battle took place several hundred yards away. What's causing such a loud commotion? Has Zhuo Tianquang's legion finally started clashing with Mysterious Moon's experts? A hint of anticipation appeared in Blue Sheath's eyes as she looked at the intermittent flashes coming from a distant part of the forest. Immediately, she went into stealth and dashed toward the other battlefield. Anyone capable of causing such a huge commotion in the current miniature ancient world must possess strength at the Tier 4 standard. Out of World Dominators' forces scattered across the New Moon Forest, only the Trump Card Legion led by Zhuo Tianquang possessed Tier 4 combatants. Meanwhile, if Zhuo Tianquang's legion was making a move, it went without saying that they had discovered Mysterious Moon's members. Thus, Blue Sheath needed to head over to the other battlefield immediately. Otherwise, she might miss out on her chance to challenge Nightingale. Boom, boom, boom. As the sounds of battle continued echoing throughout the forest, Blue Sheath arrived within 100 yards of the battlefield. There were several hundred players fighting on the battlefield right now. Of the two clashing sides, the side with greater numbers consisted of players wearing World Dominators' guild emblem, while the side with fewer numbers consisted of players wearing Mysterious Moon's guild emblem. Meanwhile, after observing the battle for a moment, Blue Sheath couldn't help but be stunned. How is this possible? Logically, world dominators should have been at an absolute advantage thanks to their overwhelming numbers. Yet, now, world dominators' members were fighting a retreating battle, their team of several hundred members getting pummeled by Mysterious Moon's several dozen members. At this moment, even world dominators' Zhuo Tianquang was getting pinned down by Mysterious Moon's vice guild leader, Crimson Seal. However, this still wasn't the most shocking part. What astonished Blue Sheath the most would still have to be the sight of the silver-haired female assassin dashing around the battlefield, killing one player after another. Meanwhile, this silver-haired assassin was also the opponent Blue Sheath was seeking to challenge, Nightingale. Currently, Nightingale wore leather armor engraved with magic patterns, and her body radiated mana from top to bottom. The mana she radiated had even taken on a faint, misty form. As for the two crescent blades she wielded, they were like demonic claws that tore through everything in their path. Even Lonely Dragon, a Hammer Knight and Zhuo Tianquang's vice commander, couldn't face Nightingale's attacks directly. When confronted with Nightingale's attacks, his only option was to rely on his footwork to evade Nightingale's attacks. Even then, he didn't last more than 30 seconds before he lost all of his HP to Nightingale's crescent blades. The current Nightingale was so strong that even Blue Sheath dared not move forward to challenge her. Moreover, Nightingale wasn't the only anomaly on this battlefield. The other Mysterious Moon experts were also exhibiting extraordinary combat power. 40. Since when did Mysterious Moon have so many experts with near Tier 4 strength? After observing the battle for some time, Blue Sheath finally understood why World Dominators' members were at such a severe disadvantage. Although Mysterious Moon only had 40 members on this battlefield, every one of them was an expert with combat power nearing the Tier 4 standard. This number was double of what World Dominators' side possessed. Even though World Dominators' side had more players, most of these players were of no help whatsoever. In front of an expert with near Tier 4 strength, ordinary Refinement Realm and Flowing Water Realm experts were nothing more than cannon fodder. After the battle continued for a few more minutes, Zhuo Tianquang had finally died after getting besieged by several Mysterious Moon experts. Along with Zhuo Tianquang's death, the final member of World Dominators' Trump Card Legion had also disappeared from the New Moon Forest. If you find any errors, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 125, 100 Flow City in an Uproar. Chapter 125, 100 Flow City in an Uproar. Jinhai City, downtown area, Lan Family Mansion. What? Nearly all of our experts in 100 Flow City got annihilated? Impossible. Hadn't you been moving with World Dominators? How can nearly all of you get killed? Also, you all got killed by Zero Wing of all guilds. Lan Hailong, dressed in a collared suit with two female secretaries standing by his side, bellowed as he glared at Luo Qiancheng through the video call. When he heard the news Luo Qiancheng suddenly brought him, he couldn't help but shoot up from his seat, the grape wine in his hand spilling all over the floor. Zero Wing was nothing but a small guild established by someone he had dismissed from his guild. Yet, now, he was being told that this small guild had eradicated nearly all of his guild's experts. How could he possibly believe this? The most ridiculous part about this was that Zero Wing had accomplished this feat with only one player. It's true, Chairman Lan, Luo Qiancheng said with a helpless and bitter smile. Moreover, it isn't just us who got done in. Guild leader Jiyu and his team also got wiped out by that mysterious swordsman from Zero Wing. According to guild leader Gu's analysis, he suspects that person might be a Tier 6 God-ranked expert, one attack. With just one attack, that mysterious swordsman from Zero Wing had snuffed out the lives of over 1,000 players. The attack had happened so quickly and suddenly that Luo Qiancheng didn't even manage to react to it. Before he knew it, the world around him had turned grey, and his connection with his body was forcibly disconnected. The only thing he managed to see was a cloaked figure holding a sword in the distance. A God-ranked expert? Impossible. How can a small guild have ties with a God-ranked expert? Also, Jiyu Iran is one of World Dominators' top-tier geniuses. Even a God-ranked expert won't have an easy time killing him in the miniature ancient world. Lan Hailong instinctively refused to believe Luo Tiancheng's words. Jiyu Iran was one of the people world dominators had tasked with managing its affiliated guilds in the miniature ancient world. Setting aside the fact that Jiyu Iran was a flowing water realm expert, just the fact that he was considered a top-tier genius in world dominators meant that he would have received some tools that could save him during desperate times. The various superpowers might not care much about the lives of their normal members, but it was a different story for the lives of their top-tier geniuses. The cost of even a single death was high in the miniature ancient world. If the various superpowers wanted to ensure their advantage in the miniature ancient world, they would definitely do everything they could to prevent their top-tier geniuses from dying. As a super guild, there was no way world dominators would supply its top-tier geniuses with life-saving items. Meanwhile, just like Lan Hailong surmised, Jiyu Iran had indeed received life-saving items from his guild. With the items he had, he could easily survive an assassination attempt from even domain realm experts. Unfortunately, Jiyu Iran hadn't expected Shifeng's attack to be so strong and fast. Everything happened so quickly that he had already gotten killed before he even realized what was going on. Naturally, he didn't have time to use his life-saving items, either. Otherwise, even if Shifeng's attack could shatter space, he couldn't have stopped the activation of a Tier 4 teleportation scroll. I'm telling the truth, Chairman Lan. You can ask guild leader Jiyu about this yourself, Luo Tiancheng said. When he saw Lan Hailong's crazed expression, he could understand what was going through the other party's mind. If he were standing in Lan Hailong's shoes, he wouldn't have been able to accept this situation, either. In order to capitalize on the miniature ancient world's benefits, Shadow had borrowed a lot of credits to gear its experts with level 100 epic weapons and equipment. After all, Shadow's experts had achieved significant improvements in their combat standards after receiving World Dominators' training resources. If they combined their improved combat standards with epic weapons and equipment, they could go against even the experts of first-rate guilds. Yet, now, after taking a deep breath, Lan Hailong asked, How many epic weapons and equipment did we lose? Roughly 500 pieces, Luo Tiancheng answered carefully. Although Shadow had suffered over 1,000 casualties in the fight with Zero Wing, not everyone was geared with epic weapons and equipment. After all, even if Shadow had the money, there weren't that many level 100 epic weapons and equipment available for sale. At a reasonable price, that is. If you have problems with this website, please continue reading your novel on our new website mynovelful.com. Thanks. Because the various powers were frantically buying up epic weapons and equipment, the average price of these items had also skyrocketed. With Shadow's limited financial strength, it could only equip around half of its experts with epic weapons and equipment. Hence, the loss they suffered wasn't as terrible as one would expect. However, Lan Hailong nearly fainted when he heard Luo Tiancheng's answer. The average price of a piece of level 100 epic equipment was 300,000 credits, while the price of a level 100 epic weapon was 700,000 credits. If he assumed half of the epic items lost were weapons, his total loss would reach 250 million credits. He had already invested all of the money he had into the miniature ancient world. A loss of 250 million was no different than a stab to his heart. World Dominators. Is World Dominators not going to do anything about this situation? Lan Hailong asked, a glimmer of hope appearing in his heart. Shadow was one of World Dominators' affiliated guilds, and its experts had suffered annihilation while carrying out a mission for World Dominators. By reason, World Dominators should avenge Shadow. If that happened, there was a high chance that Shadow could recover the weapons and equipment it lost. Even if they couldn't recover those items, so long as World Dominators offered to help Shadow in 100 Flow City, Shadow would still have a chance to return to the miniature ancient world's frontlines in the future. However, as soon as Lan Hailong finished asking his question, a voice came from beside Luo Tiancheng. That's unlikely to happen. Mysterious Moon has already annihilated all 3 of World Dominators' legions that are stationed in 100 Flow City. World Dominators lost? You're saying World Dominators, a super guild, lost? Lan Hailong was dumbfounded as he looked at Rampant Blade, who had appeared in the video call. At this time, let alone Lan Hailong, even Luo Tiancheng couldn't help but be dumbfounded by the news Rampant Blade shared. It was already unbelievable that Zero Wing had a Tier 6 God-ranked expert helping it. However, a first-rate guild defeating a super guild was even more unbelievable. Even if it were only 3 of a super guild's legions, this matter still sounded like fantasy. At the same time, news of World Dominator's defeat also quickly spread throughout the entire 100 Flow City. This is crazy. This world must be going crazy. I didn't think Mysterious Moon had hidden its strength so well. I can't believe even World Dominators is no match for Mysterious Moon. Sure enough, times are changing in God's domain. When the various powers and players learned of this shocking piece of news, some felt admiration toward Mysterious Moon, while some felt that World Dominators had weakened. Most importantly, everyone had come to realize one thing: super guilds were no longer unbeatable existences. Because of this situation, many powers that had been accumulating their strength in secret had begun growing restless, and all of them were thinking of challenging the various superpowers' authority. If you find any errors, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 126, Saint Legacy. Chapter 126, Saint Legacy. 100 Flow City, which is Sin's residence. 40? You're saying Mysterious Moon has 40 experts with strength nearing the Tier 4 standard? Liu Wusheng asked, greatly surprised when he heard Bluesheath's report. Then, realization dawned upon him as he said, no wonder World Dominators stayed silent after losing to Mysterious Moon. Without mobilizing all of its forces, there's no way World Dominators can deal with those 40 experts. The public was only aware that Mysterious Moon had won against World Dominators, not how Mysterious Moon had achieved this victory. Although this information was already plenty shocking, it was nothing compared to the information Bluesheath brought back. I thought World Dominators would try to recover its lost reputation immediately, but it seems that won't be happening anytime soon, Liu Wusheng said as he stroked his beard. I have truly underestimated Mysterious Moon. I didn't think they would actually be so far ahead of Witch's Sin. That's right. I didn't think that Mysterious Moon has hidden its strength so deeply, Bluesheath said, nodding in agreement. Challenging a superpower was a necessary process for all first-rate guilds. Only when a first-rate guild had managed to achieve a victory against a superpower would the other powers in God's domain recognize it as a superpower. Otherwise, nobody would be convinced of the first-rate guild status, and nobody would fear it as they would fear a superpower. However, while Mysterious Moon might have snatched the initiative, it is Witch's Sin's turn to make a move next. Liu Wusheng said, his voice filled with determination. Actually, Mysterious Moon's matter isn't the most shocking thing I saw today, Elder Liu, Bluesheath suddenly said. Before I discovered Mysterious Moon's fight with World Dominators, I saw something even more amazing. Something even more amazing? Liu Wusheng couldn't help but be a little surprised. If news of Mysterious Moon having 40 experts with near Tier 4 strength got out, it would most likely shake the entire miniature ancient world. Nobody would think that World Dominators had grown weaker after losing to Mysterious Moon, either. On the contrary, they would think that World Dominators' defeat was inevitable. So, Liu Wusheng found it hard to believe that there was something even more amazing than this matter. A Tier 6 sword god has entered the miniature ancient world, Bluesheath said, uttering every word loudly and clearly. Moreover, I can guarantee that it's a sword god that I have never seen before. A never-before-seen sword god in the miniature ancient world? Liu Wusheng felt a chill crawling down his spine when he heard Bluesheath's words. Are you certain? It should be known that Tier 6 god-ranked experts were high and mighty existences. Even if the miniature ancient world had a lot of opportunities and potentially even housed god legacies, these opportunities were nothing to a true Tier 6 god-ranked expert. There was no way a god-ranked expert would do something as stupid as abandoning their Tier 6 status and restarting their progress in the miniature ancient world. Even the 5 great super guilds wouldn't do such a thing. The reason for this was simple. The birth of every Tier 6 god-ranked expert required an astronomical amount of 7 luminaries crystals. It was why only the strongest among first-rate guilds possessed Tier 6 god-ranked experts. While the various superpowers had the 7 luminaries crystals to produce multiple god-ranked experts, they definitely couldn't afford to waste these resources. Hence, there shouldn't exist a Tier 6 god-ranked expert in the entire miniature ancient world. If such an expert existed, there could only be one explanation. An outer world player. I have a record of the battle, Blue Sheath said as she forwarded the video she recorded of Shifeng's battle. A saint legacy. This was the first thought that came to Liu Wusheng's mind after watching the video. Most people would only take Shifeng's attack at face value when they saw the attack shattering space. However, as a Tier 5 divine mage and someone incredibly close to reaching Tier 6, Liu Wusheng possessed much greater knowledge than most players. Meanwhile, thanks to his knowledge, Liu Wusheng could tell that the main reason Shifeng could exhibit such power with his attack was due to his extraordinary control and usage of mana. The level of control and usage Shifeng had exhibited was simply unheard of. If you have problems with this website, please continue reading your novel on our new website mynovelful.com. Thanks. Out of all the existences Liu Wusheng could think of, the saints of legends, individuals who had reached the extremities of one particular field, should be the only existences capable of manipulating mana in such a precise and ingenious manner. Hence, he concluded that in addition to being a Tier 6 god-ranked expert, Shifeng must also have a saint legacy. I believe Mysterious Moon shares a close relationship with this sword god. Otherwise, he wouldn't have appeared in the new Moon Forest when Mysterious Moon was challenging world dominators, Blue Sheath said, offering her opinion on the matter. No. You're completely mistaken, Liu Wusheng said, shaking his head. Or, more specifically, everyone in 100 Flow City is mistaken. This god-ranked expert didn't appear because Mysterious Moon decided to challenge world dominators. Instead, it is because Mysterious Moon has formed a partnership with this god-ranked expert beforehand that it dared to challenge world dominators. 40 experts with near Tier 4 strength. This was a force only a veteran super guild like world dominators could muster at this stage of the game. Newer super guilds and other superpowers couldn't muster such a force even if they wanted to. Mysterious Moon was merely a first-rate guild that didn't even have a Tier 6 god-ranked expert. How the hell did it come to possess so many experts of such caliber? What should we do about this, Elder Liu? Blue Sheath asked. After thinking it over, she felt that Elder Liu's words made sense. Otherwise, she'd have no way to explain how Nightingale, someone slightly weaker than her in terms of combat standard, possessed the ability to kill a domain realm expert like World Dominators' Hammer Knight Lonely Dragon. Go and get ready. It's about time we visit Zero Wing as well, Liu Wusheng said, smiling as he stood up from his seat. We can't let Mysterious Moon monopolize everything. Good things must be shared. I understand. Blue Sheath nodded. I'll have people find out where Zero Wing is based immediately. After saying so, Blue Sheath vanished from the conference room, leaving Liu Wusheng by himself. An outer world player, is it? It seems it's about time we break free from World Dominators' control, Liu Wusheng muttered as he looked out the window. Witch's Sin had already reached the standard of a super first-rate guild 3 years ago. Its strength had long since gone beyond the level of even top-tier first-rate guilds. In addition to having 2 publicly known Tier 6 god-ranked experts, it also had one other Tier 6 god-ranked expert in secret. With 3 Tier 6 god-ranked experts and the guild's near-perfect guild legacy that allowed it to nurture players systematically until the Void Realm, Witch's Sin was more than qualified to become a super first-rate guild. Even actual super first-rate guilds were no better than Witch's Sin in these regards. However, Witch's Sin still chose to conceal its strength and hide behind world dominators. This was because the leadership of Witch's Sin understood that it still wasn't time for their guild to reveal its strength. They understood that the pool of water known as God's Domain was much deeper than most people thought. It definitely wasn't as shallow as it seemed. 3 god-ranked experts were far from enough to accomplish anything great in God's Domain. Witch's Sin still required an opportunity. Meanwhile, now was the chance for Witch's Sin to rise. If you find any errors, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 3055 _100 Flow City, New Moon Forest. 100 Flow City, New Moon Forest. After Shifeng exterminated Shadows and World Dominators' experts, the other experts on the battlefield promptly scattered like a bunch of frightened birds, leaving only Shifeng's party of 5 behind. In no time at all, the previously lively surroundings of the New Moon Lake had become desolate and silent. "You're too cruel, guild leader. You ruined my wonderful training opportunity," Happy Snow complained when she looked at the desolate lakeside area. "I'm already close to breaking through the last barrier. All I needed was to spar with a few more Flowing Water Realm experts." Flowing Water Realm experts were incredibly rare in God's domain, and opportunities to spar with such experts were even rarer. Unless she went knocking on the door of a guild with Flowing Water Realm experts, it was unlikely that she would come across such opportunities. Meanwhile, out of the affiliated guilds World Dominators had gathered today, some of them had dispatched Flowing Water Realm experts. Yet. The battle was already over after she had the chance to execute only one move. The Flowing Water Realm experts standing behind Jiu Iren didn't even get the chance to make a move before Shifeng killed them. It is indeed a pity. Su Qianliu also revealed a disappointed look in regards to this situation. If Shifeng hadn't made a move, she could have gotten the chance to spar with true experts like Jiu Iren. Jiu Iren and his subordinates had trained under a super guild, so their foundations must be greater than the average Flowing Water Realm expert. If she could spar with such experts, she could definitely improve her combat standards. "Can you two battle maniacs stop being ungrateful? I think the guild leader's actions are right. See how much work he saved you guys." Blackie reprimanded, curling his lips as he looked at the weapons and equipment scattered across the battlefield. "If we had to kill them one after another, most of Shadow's experts would have fled after realizing they're no match for us. If we allowed that to happen, what's the point of us coming over to intercept them in the first place?" There were only 2 ways to affect a guild in God's domain. The first way was through targeting a guild's experts. The second way was through targeting a guild's income. If one caused sufficient damage through any of these 2 methods, one could erase a guild from God's domain. Meanwhile, their goal this time was to target Shadow's experts. Apart from being the symbol of Shadow, these experts were also the strength Shadow relied on to raid team dungeons. Without these experts, Shadow would no longer have a stable supply of high-quality weapons and equipment. If it became known that Shadow lacked the ability to raid high-difficulty team dungeons and secure high-quality weapons and equipment, who'd possibly be willing to join or stay in Shadow? Eventually, Shadow would gradually lose its members and eventually be forced to disband. However, whether it was Su Qianliu or Happy Snow, neither of them bothered themselves with internal affairs. They remained oblivious to the importance of high-quality weapons and equipment to an organization in God's domain. They also didn't know how to cherish a good opportunity to secure a bunch of high-quality weapons and equipment. From how Blackie looked at it, if it weren't for Firecloud sacrificing all of his time and energy managing internal affairs, Su Qianliu's 1000 Flow adventurer team would have never managed to survive in the Black Dragon Empire. Now that Happy Snow and Su Qianliu had joined Zero Wing, they became even more unhinged. They paid zero attention to the guild's internal affairs and focused entirely on improving their strength. It was especially true after they acquired the Holy Annihilation Mana technique. Both of them had become crazed battle maniacs. "Alright, hurry up and collect the loot," Shifeng said as he watched Su Qianliu and Blackie bickering with each other. He wasn't surprised that they had differing opinions, though. Or, more specifically, he had already gotten used to this situation. After all, when they were in Shadow, Blackie was responsible for managing internal affairs, while Su Qianliu was responsible for managing external affairs. It was also the same case in Zero Wing during Shifeng's previous life. This battle is only a warm-up. The real fight has just started. Su Qianliu was confused by Shifeng's words. Hasn't Mysterious Moon defeated World Dominators already? These next 2 days were the most crucial for competing for the Dark Moon outpost. After Mysterious Moon had annihilated all 3 of World Dominators' legions, the experts of World Dominators' affiliated guilds had also fled the New Moon Forest. It was unlikely that World Dominators could organize a force strong enough to go against Mysterious Moon these next 2 days. Hence, Mysterious Moon was almost guaranteed to secure the Dark Moon outpost. If you have problems with this website, please continue reading your novel on our new website mynovelful.com. Thanks. Aside from having to wait for Mysterious Moon to transfer the Dark Moon outpost shops to Zero Wing, there shouldn't be anything that Zero Wing needed to do these next 2 days. Mysterious Moon has indeed defeated world dominators, Shifeng said, chuckling. But do you honestly think a super guild has so little strength? After this incident, world dominators will most likely start retaliating for real. During his previous life, Shifeng had been the guild leader of the #1 guild in God's domain. Hence, he knew just how powerful a super guild was. World dominators might have difficulty mustering a force of 40 experts with near tier 4 strength, but targeting a first-rate guild and securing a measly outpost was child's play for it. In God's domain, defending one's possessions was often more difficult than fighting for another person's possessions. After this battle, it would be Zero Wing and Mysterious Moon's turn to defend, while World Dominators would begin its offensive. Meanwhile, only after they had successfully defended their advantage would their victory count. This was something Mysterious Moon probably understood as well. In fact, Mysterious Moon might have already begun concentrating its strength in 100 Flow City to solidify its hold over the Dark Moon outpost. Meanwhile, the Dark Moon outpost would become the foundation for Zero Wing's future development, and a significant amount of money and resources would be necessary to develop it. Hence, Zero Wing needed to take every opportunity it had to secure valuable resources. After 10 minutes of looting, Shifeng's party collected all of the items on the ground. Crap. Since when was Shadow this rich? Over half of all these items are epic rank. Blackie couldn't help but be astonished when he was done sorting through the loot. Lan Hailong will probably have a heart attack if he learns of this loss. They had acquired a little over 1,000 weapons and equipment in this battle, and over 600 of them were epic ranked. It should be known that they had targeted mainly Shadow's experts during the previous fight, while the number of World Dominators' experts they killed was no more than 100. In other words, over 500 of the epic weapons and equipment they looted belonged to Shadow. They could already arm a 100-man team to the teeth with this many epic weapons and equipment. At this time, even Shifeng couldn't help but feel sorry for Lan Hailong. A 100-man team's worth of epic weapons and equipment. At this stage of the game, even first-rate guilds could only afford to gear their main force to such an extent. This meant that Shadow had just lost an entire main force's worth of equipment. Nice. We've hit the jackpot this time, Firecloud exclaimed excitedly as he looked at the weapons and equipment in his bag. We won't have to worry about lacking equipment when we recruit more members later. The number of epic weapons and equipment they just acquired surpassed even the total number the 1,000 Flow Adventurer team possessed when the Adventurer team transitioned into the miniature ancient world. Zero Wing's guild warehouse would remain stocked for a long time with this huge influx of weapons and equipment. No, we will be selling everything but the epic weapons. The sooner, the better, Shifeng said, shaking his head. Moreover, it's best if we can convert these items into magic crystals. As for the guild warehouse, I'll think of a way to produce more mana equipment sets later. Setting aside level 100 epic weapons, level 100 epic equipment could only be used in the current stage of the game. Once the various powers entered the level 120 neutral zone and interacted with the outer world players, mana equipment would quickly become the mainstream equipment. At that time, other than powerful epic weapons and equipment, everything else would become outdated. Rather than wait until the level 100 epic equipment lost their value, it'd be better to sell the equipment while they could still get a good price. They could also use the coins and magic crystals they earned to upgrade the Abyssal Star Ancient City. Okay. I'll go and get it done, Blackie said, having no opinions regarding Shifeng's decision. After experiencing the mana equipment set's effects, he could no longer see ordinary epic equipment as excellent. After Shifeng's party returned to 100 Flow City, Shifeng suddenly received an emergency notification from the system. Simultaneously, a window showing the surveillance footage of his villa popped up in front of him. Why are they here? Shifeng couldn't help but be surprised when he saw the scene displayed in the surveillance footage. Noticing the strange look on Shifeng's face, Su Qianliu curiously asked. What's wrong, guild leader? It's nothing. Some old acquaintances just appeared outside my house, Shifeng said, chuckling. Old acquaintances? Who? Blackie asked curiously. He knew that Shifeng had very few acquaintances in Jinhai City, and even fewer among them would come knocking on his door at this time. In response, Shifeng calmly said, Lan Hailong. If you find any errors, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 128, Fight? Chapter 128, Fight? Lan Hailong. Why is he here? Blackie's expression darkened a little when he heard Shifeng's words. He had spent the past 10 years striving for shadow. Yet, not only did he have nothing to show for it, but he had even gotten thrown away like a used tool by Lan Hailong. Fortunately, the miniature ancient world had appeared, and he had managed to get into Zero Wing. Although he hadn't made any money yet, he could already see the future prospects of the guild. Zero Wing definitely had a promising future, and it would certainly surpass Shadow by leaps and bounds in the future. He's probably here for those epic weapons and equipment. Levels lost can be recovered, but it won't be easy to recover all those epic items, Su Qianliu said, smiling. Even her 1000-flow adventurer team did not possess this many epic weapons and equipment when it transitioned into the miniature ancient world. It wasn't hard for her to imagine how devastated Lan Hailong must have felt after finding out about such a loss. It might be a different story if Lan Hailong didn't know who had come into possession of these epic weapons and equipment. However, in a situation where he knew who had acquired these items, there was no way he wouldn't do something about it. Guild leader, that Lan Hailong must be up to no good. I'll bring people over to your place right away, Blackie hurriedly said when he recalled the sinister methods Lan Hailong had employed in the past. No need. I can take care of it by myself. You go and sell the equipment, Shifeng said, waving his hand. Will you really be fine, guild leader? Su Qianliu asked with some concern. Don't worry. It's just Lan Hailong and his thugs. They don't have the strength to do anything against me, Shifeng said, smiling. All right, I'm logging off. If it were 2 weeks ago, Shifeng might have had a little trouble dealing with Lan Hailong. However, the S-rank nutrient fluids he consumed had already healed his hidden injuries and revitalized his body cells fully. Combined with his training, he now possessed the physical fitness of a half-step master. Now, he would have no problems facing even martial arts masters. After saying so, Shifeng promptly chose to log out of God's domain. Outside Shifeng's villa. Under the villa's surveillance camera, Lan Hailong currently wore an ugly expression on his face. His eyes were also vaguely bloodshot, and even his clothes still had a lot of wine stains left on them. At this moment, he was completely devoid of his past arrogance and majesty. This bastard simply isn't taking us seriously, Chairman. He's made us wait outside for over 10 minutes already, the muscular and balding Ju Yuhu said impatiently. Should I break inside and drag him out? Ju Yuhu was currently Shadow's chief training instructor. He had also participated in many fighting competitions in the city and won many trophies during his younger days. Although his combat standards were inferior to Shifeng in God's domain, he was far superior to Shifeng in combat in the real world. With his physical fitness currently at the half-step Honglian master standard, he could easily take on 2 or 3 Shifengs simultaneously. Meanwhile, the security system of Shifeng's villa might seem excellent, but Ju Yuhu was confident he could sneak inside without any cameras catching him. However, after hearing Ju Yuhu's suggestion, Lan Hailong calmed down a little and shook his head, saying, Shifeng now has a tier 6 god-ranked expert backing him, so he's naturally feeling arrogant. We'll wait. Since Lan Hailong had already said so, as Lan Hailong's number 1 henchman, Ju Yuhu had no choice but to dismiss his plans and continue waiting. After another 10 minutes had gone by, the villa's door finally opened, and standing behind it was Shifeng. At this time, Shifeng was dressed in a bathrobe, and his hair was still wet. Evidently, he had just come out of the shower. If you have problems with this website, please continue reading your novel on our new website mynovelful.com. Thanks. Shifeng. Ju Yuhu immediately felt his anger flaring up when he saw Shifeng's attire. We've been standing outside for so long, yet you were inside taking a shower? Are you even taking us seriously? Do you have business with me? Shifeng asked, ignoring Ju Yuhu as he turned to look at Lan Hailong. Honestly, he wasn't trying to trouble Lan Hailong and Ju Yuhu by taking a shower. Instead, he had simply taken a shower because his body had grown dirty and sticky after spending many hours cooped up inside his virtual gaming cabin. I know you're very upset with me, Shifeng. Seemingly regaining his past majesty, Lan Hailong calmly said, now that you have a god-ranked expert standing behind you, it's natural that you can ignore Shadow and me. However, don't you know you've just brought disaster to yourself? Disaster? Shifeng couldn't help but chuckle when he saw Lan Hailong's high and mighty behavior. What is this disaster you speak of, Chairman Lan? Your Zero Wing might have a god-ranked expert backing it, but not only did your people annihilate Shadow's experts right in front of World Dominators' many affiliated guilds, but they've also killed Jiyu Iran, one of World Dominators' administrators in the miniature ancient world. Do you think World Dominators will let Zero Wing off the hook after this slight? Lan Hailong asked. When he looked at Shifeng's nonchalant expression, he could tell that the other party wasn't heeding his words whatsoever. So, he continued, I can tell you now that World Dominators is very angry over this matter. It has even prepared to issue a bounty across the entire miniature ancient world. That god-ranked expert might not care about having a bounty placed on him, but what about the rest of you? Do you think you can survive the pursuit of the miniature ancient world's countless experts? Nodding to Lan Hailong's words, Shifeng asked, so? Hasn't Zero Wing acquired Shadow's lost epic weapons and equipment? Chuckling, Lan Hailong said, I can make you an offer. Think of a way to sell those items back to Shadow. You can at least give that god-ranked expert an explanation that way. In return, Shadow will plead World Dominators' side for mercy and forget about issuing a bounty on Zero Wing. This is a deal that is good for both of us. Shifeng quietly looked at Lan Hailong. After listening to Lan Hailong's offer, he suddenly found that Lan Hailong wasn't a brainless fool like he thought. The man was simply ignorant of the current situation. Your offer is good, but I refuse, Shifeng said, shaking his head. Don't delude yourself, Shifeng. World Dominators' bounty will be one that can tempt countless expert. There is no way Zero Wing can survive this, Lan Hailong said, his gaze suddenly turning icy cold. This is your only chance. Let's just fight, then. After saying so, Shifeng closed the door and stopped entertaining Lan Hailong and Ju Yuhu, his actions causing Lan Hailong to grow dumbfounded. If you find any errors, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 129, Arrogant Shifeng. Chapter 129, Arrogant Shifeng. TL Notes. Made a change to Chapter 128, the 20th of March, 2022 Bounty-Kill Order. What does he mean? Lan Hailong fell into a daze as he stared at the villa's shut door. Fight? Fight who? World Dominators? A super guild? Should I take care of him, Chairman? Ju Yuhu suggested. Don't bother wasting your energy, Lan Hailong said, shaking his head. Then, with a somewhat gloomy expression, he said, before I came here, Jiyu Iran had already told us not to provoke Shifeng no matter what for now. Does guild leader Jiyu doubt my strength? Ju Yuhu asked angrily. I'm not trying to boast, Chairman, but my physical fitness has improved significantly since I started receiving World Dominators' training resources. I'm only a little ways off from becoming a martial arts master. It's a piece of cake for me to take care of Shifeng. You should be aware of Jiyu Iran's strength. Do you think you can beat Jiyu Iran in a fight? Lan Hailong asked as he glanced at Ju Yuhu. Ju Yuhu shook his head in response. Jiyu Iran's physical fitness had already reached a realm that was beyond his reach. If they fought seriously, he felt that Jiyu Iran could claim his life in a single move. Jiyu Iran has said that he isn't a match for Shifeng. If you still wish to try after hearing this, be my guest, Lan Hailong said as he looked at the lights on the second floor lighting up. If it weren't for Jiyu Iran's warning, he would have most likely had a similar idea as Ju Yuhu. After all, There was no way he would take such a slight sitting down. Initially, Lan Hailong had been skeptical of Jiyu Iren's claims. However, when he recalled how Jiyu Iren talked about Shifeng fearfully and then saw how nonchalantly Shifeng treated them today, he realized that Jiyu Iren might have been speaking the truth. Even guild leader Jiyu isn't a match. Ju Yuhu was stunned when he heard Lan Hailong's words. At the same time, a hint of fear had also appeared in his eyes as he stared at the villa's second floor. But are we really going to let this matter slide? Since Jiyu Iren had already spoken as such about Shifeng, Ju Yuhu naturally wouldn't be so foolish as to barge into Shifeng's villa. If he did that, Shifeng would be completely within his right to take care of him. Shifeng could even cripple him without having to worry about any legal repercussions. On the other hand, not only would he have to receive a beating, but he might even get into legal trouble for trespassing onto private property. Let this matter slide. The corners of his mouth lifting slightly, Lan Hailong said, "How can we let this matter slide?" Shifeng might think that he's become amazing, but he simply has no idea how powerful a super guild is. Just wait and see. It won't be long before Shifeng comes running to beg me. Before coming into contact with world dominators, Lan Hailong hadn't thought much of super guilds. While he acknowledged that super guilds were powerful, he didn't think they were invincible. He even used to think of challenging a super guild if there was an opportunity to do so. However, after partnering with world dominators, he realized just how powerful super guilds were. The strength the various super guilds revealed to the public was merely the tip of the iceberg. Yet, even this small tip was already enough to scare the various non-superpowers into submission. But what about all those epic weapons and equipment we lost? Ju Yuhu asked worriedly. Without those items, our main force won't be able to compete against the other powers' main force. We'll also be a step behind in exploring level 110 plus maps. If you have problems with this website, please continue reading your novel on our new website mynovelful.com. Thanks. Currently, most of the various powers experts in the miniature ancient world had already reached level 103. Some powerful experts had even reached level 104 already. Meanwhile, once the various powers' main force members reached level 105, they would promptly advance into level 110 maps and widen the gap between them and other players. However, the miniature ancient world had a significantly harsher level suppression system. Without a full suit of epic weapons and equipment, players would have difficulty grinding level 110 monsters at level 105. We don't have any other choice. We'll mortgage one of our main cities first and use the money to replace what we lost. I refuse to believe that Shadow can't survive without that batch of epic weapons and equipment Zero Wing stole, Lan Hailong said, gnashing his teeth as he looked at the villa's second floor hatefully. I want to see just how long Zero Wing can survive against World Dominators' kill order. After saying so, Lan Hailong turned around and walked away. Ju Yuhu also took one last look at the villa before chasing after Lan Hailong. Meanwhile, on the villa's second floor, after executing 3 repetitions of the body strengthening technique, Shifeng grabbed a bottle of S-rank nutrient fluid out of the fridge and drank it. Then, he climbed into his virtual gaming cabin and got ready to log into God's domain. It seems we've thoroughly enraged World Dominators this time. I didn't think World Dominators would put a kill order on us. Shifeng frowned a little when he recalled Lan Hailong's words. When a player power issued a kill order, it showed that this player power was determined to kill the person or organization they targeted. Simply put, a kill order was a bounty. However, the bounty offered by a superpower was different from what non-superpowers could offer. The bounty the average power offered wouldn't earn the interest of peak experts. This was because the average power would only offer credits or coins for their bounty. At best, it would offer epic weapons and equipment. However, none of these things could catch the interest of peak experts. After all, a peak expert in God's domain could easily earn several million credits from a single commission. Obtaining epic weapons and equipment was a simple task for peak experts as well. Or, more specifically, most peak experts were the ones selling epic weapons and equipment in God's domain. Hence, the bounties issued by the average power in God's domain wouldn't attract the interest of peak experts at all. However, it was a different story if it were a bounty issued by a superpower. It was especially so if said superpower was a superguild, an existence standing at the top among the various superpowers. A superguild's bounty could cause even apex experts to go crazy, let alone peak experts. Whenever a superguild issued a bounty, the very minimum reward it would offer was a fragmented legendary item. Fragmented legendary items were things that even first-rate guilds had few of. Typically, even first-rate guilds wouldn't be willing to offer fragmented legendary items as a reward for their bounties. However, a super guild wouldn't care about that. Aside from fragmented legendary items, super guilds would also offer legacies as rewards. Of course, these weren't your average legacies. Instead, they were god legacies. These were legacies that even most first-rate guilds lacked the ability to acquire. Meanwhile, a god legacy would have a fatal attraction toward experts stuck in the boundary between Tier 5 and Tier 6. It was similar to how Galaxy Past was adamant in acquiring the Holy Annihilation mana technique. If World Dominators had decided to issue a kill order on Zero Wing, Shifeng did not doubt that many peak experts and apex experts would come after Zero Wing. While Shifeng was confident he could repel these attacks without trouble, it was a different story for Su Qianliu and the others. Currently, the strongest member in Zero Wing after Shifeng was Su Qianliu. With her combat standards paired with the ancient mana equipment set, she could fight against an apex expert fully geared in top-tier epic items. However, while she might be able to fight off one apex expert, what if she had to go up against 2 or 3 simultaneously? Many peak and apex experts had flooded into the miniature ancient world in an attempt to reach Tier 6. There was no way these experts wouldn't be interested in a kill order issued by World Dominators. Even if Su Qianliu and the others grouped up whenever they went out to grind, it probably won't take more than a few seconds before they got sent back to the city. With World Dominators' kill order in effect, Su Qianliu and the others wouldn't even be able to leave the city to level up. It seems I'll have to open Abyssal Star City ahead of time. If you find any errors, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 130, Surge of Wealth. Chapter 130, Surge of Wealth. By the time Shifeng had returned to God's Domain, the entire Hundred Flow City was already buzzing with activity. Almost every player in the city was talking about the battle in the New Moon Forest feverishly. Did you hear? It seems Mysterious Moon has fully occupied the New Moon Forest already. Yet, despite knowing this, World Dominators hasn't dared to send any people there. It seems World Dominators intends to give up on the Dark Moon Outpost. Of course I've heard about it. Also, your information is outdated. Outdated? According to my sources, World Dominators has already demanded Mysterious Moon to withdraw from the competition for the Dark Moon Outpost. Otherwise, even if Mysterious Moon manages to acquire it, World Dominators will turn the outpost into a restricted area. World Dominators is going too far. It's behaving no different from a bully at this point. I know, right? But Mysterious Moon has also declared that it would fight till the very end. Moreover, it is currently recruiting new players and experts, and the benefits it is offering are excellent. If Mysterious Moon manages to secure the Dark Moon Outpost as well, all of its members will get to save a lot of travel time. The players on the street discussed the war between Mysterious Moon and World Dominators, and many couldn't help but be enraged by World Dominators' overbearing attitude. At the same time, independent players who had been subjected to the various superpowers oppression all these years couldn't help but be tempted to join Mysterious Moon. After all, Mysterious Moon was the only first-rate guild to have achieved victory against a super guild these past few years. Now, it had even resolved itself to fight to the bloody end. I've also received a different piece of news. I heard that World Dominators is also planning on putting a kill order on a guild called Zero Wing. Zero Wing? Isn't that a newly established small guild? I heard that Zero Wing is super amazing. Despite being only a small guild, it has a Tier 6 God-ranked expert among its ranks. Moreover, Zero Wing has even annihilated one of World Dominators' affiliated guilds right in front of World Dominators' face. Right now, World Dominators is planning on offering 1 God Legacy and over a dozen fragmented legendary items as a reward for its kill order. You'll get 5 points for killing Zero Wings elite members, 20 points for killing internal members, 100 points for killing core members, and 1000 points for killing executive members. You can then use these points to exchange with world dominators. Crazy. This is crazy. What is going on with this miniature ancient world? It's only been a few days since it opened, yet first it was Mysterious Moon, now it is a newly established guild. Is everyone trying to go against world dominators? It's also because of this situation that World Dominators is trying to set an example. There's no way anybody couldn't resist the temptation of these rewards. Although it costs 20 million points to exchange for the God Legacy and 5 million points for each fragmented legendary item, it's not entirely impossible to obtain this many points. This is a chance for many ordinary experts in the miniature ancient world to access these resources. You've tempted me with your words. Should we team up to hunt Zero Wings members? I'll pass. I heard that while Zero Wing might not have many members, every one of them possesses extraordinary strength. Even the weakest among them is a first-rate expert. Rather than hunt Zero Wings members, I'd be giving them equipment instead. When Shifeng overheard the independent players' discussion, he couldn't help but chuckle. World Dominators sure is ruthless. To think it would go as far as to use a God Legacy as a bounty. Even I'm feeling a little tempted by this offer. The generosity of this point system should also allow hard-working ordinary experts to exchange for a fragmented legendary item. Setting aside the God Legacy, just the fragmented legendary items being offered were already more than enough to tempt most players into action. After all, a fragmented legendary item could grant players a massive boost to their combat power, much greater than what the standardized ancient mana equipment sets could provide. Even now, Shifeng only had one fragmented legendary item in his possession, while most first-rate guilds didn't even have 30 fragmented legendary items. Yet, now, World Dominators was offering over a dozen fragmented legendary items as a reward for its kill order. When Shifeng arrived in front of the Candlelight Hotel, he received an urgent call from Blackie. Guild leader, have you received the news yet? World Dominators has placed a kill order on us. Now, practically every player and power in the miniature ancient world is talking about this matter. I've even received news saying that some superpowers experts are considering World Dominators' offer, Blackie said anxiously. Many of our members have already asked to withdraw from the guild because of World Dominators' kill order. Moreover, I'm afraid it will be incredibly difficult for us to go out and grind in the future. If you have problems with this website, please continue reading your novel on our new website mynovelful.com. Thanks. A super guild's kill order. This was the first time Blackie had ever experienced such a situation. In the past, whenever he learned of super guilds placing a kill order on someone, he would simply think of it as an entertaining piece of news. However, now that he was the target of one of these kill orders, he couldn't find it entertaining in the slightest. He also understood what it felt like to be subjected to a super guild's kill order. As soon as this kill order appeared, he felt that the whole world had become his enemies. Some of Zero Wing's members were even selling information on their fellow guildmates. Since Blackie was an executive of Zero Wing, his head was worth 1,000 points. If others killed him 5,000 times, they'd have enough points to redeem a fragmented legendary item from World Dominators. If they killed him 20,000 times, they'd had enough to exchange for a God Legacy. 20,000 times. That'd be enough deaths to last him for 10 years. I've heard about it already, Shifeng said, chuckling as he looked at Blackie's anxious expression. It's nothing big. Since World Dominators wants to play, we'll play with them. He had experienced this situation many times during his previous life, so he had long since grown used to it. Adding one more experience to the list wouldn't faze him in the slightest. I want to do that too, guild leader, but we're dead-ass broke. We don't have anything we can offer as a reward, Blackie said with a bitter smile. In addition to a God Legacy, World Dominators had also offered over a dozen fragmented legendary items as a reward. These were all items that even Apex experts sought to obtain, let alone ordinary experts. The only thing of roughly equal value Zero Wing could offer was the standardized ancient mana equipment sets. However, if they recklessly gave these items away, it might backfire on them instead. How is the sale of the epic weapons and equipment coming along? Shifeng asked. 1. It's going along smoothly, Blackie said excitedly. You have no idea how popular epic weapons and equipment are on the market right now, guild leader. Everything that appears in the auction house will get bought out almost immediately. Although we've sold only 70% of our epic equipment, we've already made 830,000 gold and 26 million magic crystals. That much? Shifeng was a little flabbergasted. He finally understood Lan Hailong had swallowed his pride to come knocking on his door asking for those epic weapons and equipment. Lan Hailong had even gone as far as to ask to buy those items back. Because of the various powers' fervent attempt to secure a foothold in the miniature ancient world, the value of epic weapons and equipment here had soared even further. Now, it would seem that demand for these items far surpassed supply. Originally, Shifeng thought that they could, at most, make 2 million gold from the sales of Shadow's epic weapons and equipment. Yet, even though they had only sold 70% of their haul thus far, they've already made over 2 million gold in profit. Even for a first-rate guild, a sum of 830,000 gold and 26 million magic crystals was a significant amount of wealth. It should be known that Zero Wing's transaction with Mysterious Moon only amounted to 160,000 gold and 400,000 magic crystals. Moreover, the equipment Zero Wing sold to Mysterious Moon came in 8-piece sets. 40 sets in total meant 320 pieces of equipment. Even though there was only a small difference in number, the difference in actual value was massive. If we convert all of these coins and magic crystals into mana equipment sets, we might have a chance at fighting against world dominators, Blackie said, his worries lessening significantly when he recalled how many coins and magic crystals Zero Wing had earned. No. It's too much of a waste to convert everything into mana equipment set. I have a much better use for these resources, Shifeng said, shaking his head. Come over to the Candlelight Hotel quickly. I'll take you to a good place. TL notes, the part where World Dominators is offering a god legacy and over a dozen fragmented legendary items is very absurd and contradictory to what we've known thus far about the miniature ancient world, so I assume that these rewards will be given out on the main continent instead of in the miniature ancient world. Most experts are entering the miniature ancient world for an opportunity to reach higher tiers, and fragmented legendary items are essentially opportunities for players who weren't executives of superpowers or first-rate powers. If they can get a fragmented legendary item or a god legacy reserved to their name on the main continent, they probably wouldn't mind starting over a new character on the main continent. There is also the option of helping others on the main continent acquire these opportunities in exchange for real-world benefits, S-rank nutrient fluid, life potion, etc. A little spoiler, but World Dominators is even going to add a legendary item in its list of rewards later on. Unless legendary items have suddenly become worthless, I doubt anyone can acquire a legendary item in the first few weeks of the miniature ancient world's launch. 1. How is the sale of the epic weapons and equipment coming along? Shifeng asked. Shifeng mentioned in chapter 127 that they would only be selling the epic equipment, but the author wrote epic weapons and equipment in this chapter. I'm assuming he forgot, or he just typed weapons out of habit, but I'll leave it as such unless a future chapter proves this otherwise. If you find any errors, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 131, Zero Wings Guild Residence. Chapter 131, Zero Wings Guild Residence 100 Flow City, Candlelight Hotel. At Shifeng's command, Blackie promptly used a return scroll to teleport back to 100 Flow City. Then, he hurried his way back to the Candlelight Hotel, not daring to delay for even a moment. After entering the hotel, Blackie followed Shifeng to the secret room located in the hotel's basement. Then, after entering the secret room and making sure that nobody else was around, he finally couldn't hold back his curiosity any longer as he asked, "Why did you call me back so urgently, guild leader? Where are we heading to?" "To a city. You'll know once we arrive," Shifeng said as he took out a guild transfer scroll from his bag. Then, he handed the scroll to Blackie and continued, "Take this and use it." A guild transfer scroll? Blackie's eyes widened in shock when he saw the magic scroll Shifeng offered him. Guild leader, we have a guild residence now. A guild transfer scroll was similar to a return scroll. However, instead of teleporting players to a city's teleportation hall, it teleported players to the guild residence linked to it instead. The transfer scrolls could also only be used by the members of the guild that produced them. Since Shifeng was giving him a transfer scroll, it meant that Zero Wing now possessed its own guild residence. MHM. We did acquire one some time ago, but I kept it a secret from you guys because of reasons, Shifeng said, nodding. Then, he took out another transfer scroll for himself and said, "Alright, let's quickly head over. I have many things I need you to do once we head over there." Okay. Upon hearing Shifeng's words, Blackie promptly activated his transfer scroll. A guild residence was something that almost every guild player would have come across. Any guild with sufficient strength would have their own guild residence. Or, more specifically, only after gaining a guild residence would a guild be recognized as such officially. Meanwhile, a guild residence granted many benefits to a guild's members, and it was of significant help to the development of a guild. When Blackie opened his eyes again, he found that he had arrived inside an ancient-looking city. Many of the buildings in the city also looked somewhat dilapidated. This mana. It's so dense. Shortly after arriving in the Abyssal Star ancient city, Blackie quickly realized its uniqueness. Then, when he focused on perceiving his surrounding environment, he couldn't help but grow even more shocked. Not only is the mana here much denser than 100 Flow cities, but its purification properties are also many times greater. Before meeting up with Shifeng, Blackie had been grinding in the New Moon Forest, and his body had accumulated a significant amount of foreign energy as a result. Normally, if he rested in 100 Flow City or any other NPC city, he would have needed an hour to get rid of this amount of foreign energy. However, upon arriving in the Abyssal Star ancient city, he discovered that the rate at which the foreign energy in his body disappeared had increased drastically. 10 minutes. At most, it would take 10 minutes for all of the foreign energy in his body to disappear. The purification rate here was several times faster than any NPC city. However, this wasn't the end of Blackie's surprise. A moment later, he quickly discovered an even more surprising matter. The map. According to his system map, the recommended level for his current area was level 115 to level 120. In the current miniature ancient world, this was a map that no player could grind in. Moreover, Misty Canyon that the city was located in was only one map away from the Boundary River. If you have problems with this website, please continue reading your novel on our new website mynovelful.com. Thanks. Noticing the dumbfounded look on Blackie's face, Shifeng smiled and asked, "How is it? Not a bad place, right?" Blackie couldn't help but be rendered speechless when he heard Shifeng's words. This bastard was blatantly showing off. How was this just not bad? The value of this place was off the charts. Zero Wing would have a humongous advantage over the other powers if it had access to this city. Setting aside the city's excellent geographical location, just the city's purification ability was already more than enough to put it above any NPC city in the miniature ancient world. If Zero Wing's members could use this city as their base of operations, their leveling speed would be twice as fast as other players at the very minimum. Not to mention, the city itself was surrounded by level 115 plus monsters. It wouldn't take more than a few minutes of travel for players to reach a grinding spot. In comparison, players operating from 100 Flow City would need to travel several hours before they could reach a suitable grinding spot. While Shifeng was giving Blackie a general introduction of the Abyssal Star ancient city, a lithe figure suddenly appeared before them. Meanwhile, this lithe figure was none other than Hidden Soul. "How is recruitment coming along on your side?" Shifeng asked when he saw Hidden Soul suddenly appearing before him. The main reason Shifeng had left Abyssal Star City under Hidden Soul's control was to get her to recruit mercenary players for him. Then, they would use these mercenaries to rapidly develop and defend the city. "I've recruited a batch already," Hidden Soul said. Then, sighing through her mask, she continued, "But I'm afraid it'll be tough to convince the remainder. At the very least, it's unlikely that they will join right now." "Are they not interested in the city?" Shifeng asked curiously. He found it hard to believe that any expert could resist the Abyssal Star Ancient City's temptation. "It's not that they're not interested. It's just that they don't believe me," Hidden Soul said with a bitter smile. "However, considering that none of them are willing to join or sign a confidentiality contract, it's too big of a risk to reveal anything to them." The Abyssal Star Ancient City was too magical. It was especially so for the ancient tower in the middle of the city. It was essentially a holy land for players to learn the operating principles of mana. They'd be inviting disaster for themselves if they recklessly revealed the ancient tower's secrets to others without having the necessary strength to protect it. Hence, while trying to recruit her acquaintances, she would only vaguely say that the city was an excellent place to improve one's combat standards. Only after these people had agreed to join and signed a confidentiality contract would she share the tower's secrets with them. After thinking it over, Shifeng asked, "How many people are we talking about? What are their standards?" Hidden Soul raised a finger in response. 10. Or 100? Shifeng asked in confusion. Hidden Soul rolled her eyes when she heard Shifeng's question. Then, in a contemptuous tone, she said, "It's 1,000. Out of these 1,000 players, even the weakest is a half-step refinement realm expert, and over half of them are refinement realm experts or above. There are also over 20 void realm experts and 4 domain realm experts. That many? How did you find all these people?" Shifeng was honestly shocked when he heard Hidden Soul's answer. Originally, Shifeng thought that Hidden Soul could, at most, recruit a dozen or so void realm experts. Then, they could get these void realm experts to introduce their acquaintances to join the mercenary alliance. The best-case scenario would be that they managed to recruit a few hundred experts before the city's opening. In the current state of the miniature ancient world, this could already be considered a relatively sizable force. Meanwhile, Blackie couldn't help but be dumbfounded by Hidden Soul's words. Over 500 refinement realm expert. Even first-rate guilds couldn't field so many refinement realm experts. In the miniature ancient world, this was a force that only the various superpowers could take out. "Don't ask," Hidden Soul said as she looked at Shifeng. "The only thing I can say is that if I can open this place for others to visit, I'll be able to recruit even more experts. However, if I have to operate without exposing this city's existence, it'd be difficult for the Mercenary Alliance to take shape in just 10 days. Seeing the anxious look on Hidden Soul's face, Shifeng chuckled and said, "Don't worry. You can start sharing some of Abyssal Star City's information with those people from today onwards. Aren't you worried that the various superpowers will surround this place once it gets exposed?" Hidden Soul asked as she looked at Shifeng in surprise. If the Abyssal Star Ancient City's secrets got out, she did not doubt that the various superpowers would band together to attack this place. Meanwhile, with the city's current defenses, the city would fall instantly. TL notes. 1. Magic Scroll. I'm not going to capitalize Magic Scroll anymore unless it has a modifier attached to it. T3 Magic Scroll, etc. If you find any errors, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 132, Abyssal Star Ancient City's Strength. Chapter 132, Abyssal Star Ancient City's Strength that was before. Seeing the astonished look on Hidden Soul's face, Shifeng confidently said, "No one will be able to threaten Abyssal Star City from today onward, at least not until Tier 4 players appear. Normally, it would become possible for players to breach a guild city after reaching Tier 3. This was because the NPC guards a guild city could recruit were at Tier 3 on average. Their levels would also be 10 to 20 levels above the player set as the settlement's administrator. Moreover, guild cities were limited to the number of NPC soldiers they could recruit. In the miniature ancient world, the standard advanced city would only have a force of 4,000 NPC guards defending it. In other words, an advanced guild city could, at most, recruit 4,000 NPCs to defend it. It was true that NPCs were stronger than players on average. NPCs would typically have more skills and spells than players of the same tier. It was also much cheaper and easier to fully equip NPC guards in epic items. Thus, Even refinement realm experts would have difficulty fighting against an NPC of the same tier. Meanwhile, a force of 4,000 Tier 3 NPCs was more than enough to crush the siege of any superpower. However, faced against the siege of multiple superpowers, a force of 4,000 Tier 3 NPCs would crumble quickly. After all, unlike players, it was much more difficult for NPCs to get resurrected. Hence, in the era of Tier 3, the various superpowers could easily take down an advanced city so long as they worked together. However, that was no longer the case for the Abyssal Star Ancient City. Shifeng had money now. As a city of the second sequence, Abyssal Star City had a massive advantage over normal cities when it came to recruiting NPCs. So long as one had the money, one could recruit powerful NPC guards to defend the city. It was similar to the NPC merchants visiting Abyssal Star City. In only a few days, many NPC merchants had already gathered in Abyssal Star City and rented many of the shops in the city. "Are you really sure about this?" Hidden Soul asked. When she looked at Shifeng's confident look, it didn't seem like he was lying to her. "Go ahead and do it. Just make sure to keep Zero Wing's connection with this city a secret," Shifeng said, chuckling. "These are your words. Don't say I didn't warn you when you lose this city." After saying so, Hidden Soul promptly logged out of the game, evidently delighted by Shifeng's proposal. She could already imagine how her acquaintances would react once they found out about Abyssal Star City's effects. Those people would most likely beg her to let them join the Mercenary Alliance. After reaching Tier 5, players would need to meet 2 requirements that involved mana if they wished to reach Tier 6. The first requirement was to master the basic principles of mana, while the second requirement was to master the advanced usage of mana. Unfortunately, even if players managed to find a holy land with incredibly dense mana, it'd still be nigh impossible to achieve these 2 requirements. The difficulty of doing so was simply far too great for most Tier 5 players. However, it was a different story for the Ancient Tower. The Ancient Tower's ability to filter out all but one type of mana would simplify the process of perceiving, understanding, and learning how to use mana significantly. Hence, players would have a much higher chance at fulfilling the requirements to reach Tier 6 in the Abyssal Star Ancient City's Ancient Tower compared to a Holy Land. Moreover, these were only the effects of the Ancient Tower's first floor. Along with the Abyssal Star Ancient City's development, the Ancient Tower's second and third floors would also open up. At that time, even more powerful effects would become available. Hence, in a situation where combat standard requirements were met, the Ancient Tower would become a crucial component for Tier 5 players seeking to reach Tier 6 in the miniature ancient world. What a hurry she's in. Shifeng couldn't help but shake his head and laugh when he saw Hidden Soul logging out of the game. Then, he looked toward Blackie and said, "Let's go. It's time we begin our business." "What business?" Blackie asked in confusion. "If you have problems with this website, please continue reading your novel on our new website mynovelful.com. Thanks. I asked you here to help me with 2 things. While walking toward the City Lord's mansion located in the center of the city, Shifeng explained, "Your first job is to help me organize the recruitment information in the City Lord's mansion. Your second job is to make an announcement to the entire miniature ancient world in Zero Wing's name." Make an announcement to the entire miniature ancient world? Blackie grew even more dumbfounded. Making global announcements was a job Blackie was familiar with. This was because he had been responsible for making these announcements back in Shadow. But why was Shifeng asking him to make an announcement in Zero Wing's name? "We're here. Get to doing your first job for now," Shifeng said as he pointed at the majestic City Lord's manor. "You can deal with the second job once you're done with the first one. Leave it to me, guild leader. I'll get the recruitment information sorted out by today," Blackie said confidently as he looked at the crowded City Lord's manor. "It's not going to be an easy job," Shifeng said, chuckling when he saw Blackie's confident look. "We'll need to check every applicant's attribute panel before registering their information. We'd be lucky if we can get everything done by today." The number of NPCs applying for a guard position in Abyssal Star City was massive. If they wanted to recruit a reliable force of NPC guards, they'd have to carefully look through every applicant's attribute panel before deciding whether to recruit the NPCs. Afterward, Shifeng and Blackie began inspecting the NPCs gathered in the City Lord's manor one after another. Even though Blackie had done a lot of this kind of work in the past, he still couldn't help but be shocked when he saw the huge assortment of NPC applicants. The strength of the NPCs ranged all the way from Tier 4 on the highest end to Tier 1 on the lowest end. However, the growth potential of these NPCs also varied significantly. Many of the Tier 1 NPC applicants had great potential, and they should have no trouble reaching Tier 4 in the future. On the other hand, the Tier 3 NPC applicants might have greater strength right now, but most of them had average potential, and there was almost no chance that they could reach Tier 4 in the future. When inspecting these NPCs, Shifeng chose to recruit the Tier 4 NPCs they came across without hesitation. It didn't matter even if they asked for a weekly salary of 300 gold, which was 10 times higher than what the Tier 3 NPCs asked for. After inspecting the applicants for 6 hours continuously, Shifeng and Blackie ended up recruiting 237 Tier 4 NPCs that ranged from level 120 to level 125. Although it cost 71,100 gold just to hire these Tier 4 NPCs for a week, it was a worthwhile investment for the current Abyssal Star City. Every Tier 4 NPC could kill a Tier 3 peak expert with little effort. Meanwhile, a force of 237 Tier 4 NPCs was enough to cover the entire city. Aside from Tier 4 NPCs, they also decided to hire every Tier 3 NPC with great potential. Each of these NPCs cost 30 gold per week to hire, and they ended up recruiting 2,419 of such NPCs for a total of 72,570 gold per week. The total hiring cost of the Tier 3 NPCs was almost similar to that of the Tier 4 NPCs, but their numbers were 10 times greater than the Tier 4 NPCs. While these Tier 3 NPCs might not be as strong as the Tier 4 NPCs, they would become an integral part of the city's management. After all, there was no way a few hundred Tier 4 NPCs could safeguard every corner of the city at all times. However, compared to the cost of gearing up these NPCs, the cost of hiring these NPCs paled in comparison. It cost 800 gold to fully equip an NPC in level 150 epic weapons and equipment. While this price seemed cheap compared to purchasing epic weapons and equipment for players, Blackie's heart bled when he saw this price. After all, if they wanted to fully equip every NPC guard with level 150 epic weapons and equipment, they'd have to spend over 2 million gold. That simply wasn't an expenditure Zero Wing could afford at this time. With Zero Wing's current finances, the best they could do was equip the Tier 4 NPCs with epic weapons and equipment, while the Tier 3 NPCs would have to settle for level 120 dark gold weapons and equipment that cost 100 gold per set. Even so, the total expenditure of hiring and gearing the NPCs still racked up to 575,170 gold. Moreover, this was only the initial stage of the city's expenditure. If Zero Wing couldn't find a way to earn a large sum of coins, it wouldn't take more than a month for Zero Wing to go bankrupt. While Blackie was feeling gloomy over parting with a quarter of the money he had earned recently, Shifeng suddenly received a call from Shifeng. Guild leader, someone came to the Candlelight Hotel and specified that they want to meet you, Su Qianliu said after seeing Shifeng's face appearing in the video call. They say they want to discuss a partnership with Zero Wing. Partnership? Shifeng was a little surprised by this situation. Who are they? After taking a deep breath, Su Qianliu said, which is sin. If you find any errors, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 133, Tier 6 Saint. Chapter 133, Tier 6 Saint, which is sin. This was a name that almost every guild in God's domain knew about. Compared to the other first-rate guilds, Witch's Sin was the closest to becoming a super first-rate guild in God's domain. Not only did it have 2 Tier 6 God-ranked experts, but it also had at least 25 publicly known Tier 5 experts under its command. It was an existence that no power in God's domain could afford to underestimate. However, what concerned Su Qianliu right now wasn't that a pseudo-superpower was seeking to partner with Zero Wing. Instead, what concerned her was the fact that Witch's Sin was an affiliated guild under World Dominators. In a situation where World Dominators had put a kill order on Zero Wing, There was no way Su Qianlu wouldn't doubt Witch's Sin's goals. How many people did Witch's Sin send over? Shifeng asked. 2 people, an old man and a girl. The old man is the Witch's Sin's source of darkness, Liu Wusheng, Su Qianlu answered, her voice taking on a reverential tone when she spoke about Liu Wusheng. Liu Wusheng was a magical class player, and he was akin to a living legend for magical class players. This was because Liu Wusheng had fought a Tier 6 God-ranked expert to a standstill despite being only at Tier 5. The astonishing battle back then had destroyed nearly 1/3 of a kingdom. Although Liu Wusheng didn't win the fight, the God-ranked expert fighting him didn't win, either. The achievement of fighting a Tier 6 God-ranked expert to a standstill as a Tier 5 player was something only a few players could accomplish. Hence, after that battle, Liu Wusheng became a role model for many elementalists. Alright, I'll head back now, Shifeng said, nodding as he hung up the call. Are you really going to meet them now, guild leader? Blackie asked, confused by Shifeng's decision. Witch's Sin might be visiting for a partnership, but the Abyssal Star Ancient City was much more important than Witch's Sin. The sooner they finished filling up the city's NPC guard slots, the sooner they could ensure the city's safety. Meanwhile, ensuring the city's safety was especially important now that Shifeng had given Hidden Soul the green light to share the city's information. Of course. Witch's Sin isn't as simple as everyone thinks, Shifeng said, chuckling. Then, without offering an explanation, he activated his return scroll and teleported back to 100 Flow City. Most people still weren't aware how powerful Witch's Sin was exactly in this life. Most people might regard Witch's Sin as a pseudo-superpower, but if they were speaking in terms of strength, Witch's Sin could already be considered a bona fide superpower. Moreover, Witch's Sin had also kept a frightening individual hidden from the public. The Witch of Crime and Punishment, Smooth Life. During Shifeng's previous life, almost nobody knew that Witch's Sin had kept a Tier 6 mage god hidden under its grasp. Only after the greater god's domain's various powers invaded their god's domain did Witch's Sin reveal this mage god of theirs. Though, rather than a mage god, it'd be more appropriate to address Smooth Life as a Tier 6 saint instead. In addition to becoming a god-ranked expert, Smooth Life had also successfully reached the extremes of a world law. Meanwhile, during her debut fight, Smooth Life had single-handedly killed 7 Tier 6 god-ranked. After that battle, Smooth Life instantly rose to fame in both their god's domain and the greater god's domain. Upon reaching Tier 6, the difference between players would become very small. So, it was astounding that Smooth Life managed to go up against 7 god-ranked experts simultaneously and kill every one of them. Even in the greater god's domain, few Tier 6 god-ranked experts possessed such heaven-defying combat power. If you have problems with this website, please continue reading your novel on our new website mynovelful.com. Thanks. Hence, now that Witch's Sin was taking the initiative to ask for partnership with Zero Wing, Shifeng naturally couldn't turn down the offer without at least finding out what Witch's Sin wanted. After all, a Tier 6 saint would be of significant help once the Outer World powers invaded their god's domain. 100 Flow City, Candlelight Hotel. After Liu Wusheng and Blue Sheath had waited for around 20 minutes, Shifeng finally walked into the lounge they were waiting in. Hello, Mr. Black Flame. I am Liu Wusheng, Witch's Sin's great elder, Liu Wusheng said, taking the initiative to greet Shifeng. The person next to me is Blue Sheath, one of Witch's Sin's vice guild leaders. Hello, Shifeng returned the greeting while scanning the 2 people before him. May I know what partnership you seek to discuss with me? I see that you are a very straightforward person, Mr. Black Flame, Liu Wusheng commented as he caressed his beard. In that case, I'll just get to the point. Blue Sheath and I have come here for one purpose only, to make a deal with you. Chuckling, Shifeng asked, what kind of deal? The ancient mana equipment set, Liu Wusheng said, excitement flashing in his eyes. I have already looked into Mysterious Moon's situation. The reason Mysterious Moon can produce so many experts with near Tier 4 strength is entirely because of the ancient mana equipment sets you provided them. Initially, Liu Wusheng had been confused about why world dominators had chosen to avoid a frontal confrontation with Mysterious Moon. However, after investigating Mysterious Moon and learning about the ancient mana equipment sets, he understood why world dominators had made such a decision. Yes, I did supply those things to Mysterious Moon, Shifeng said, not bothering to deny Liu Wusheng's claims. Anyone intent on investigating Mysterious Moon's ancient mana equipment sets could easily find out the set's origin, so there was no point in hiding this information. We wish to buy those ancient mana equipment sets as well, Liu Wusheng said, smiling when he saw Shifeng acknowledging his claim. We are willing to pay twice as much as Mysterious Moon. Moreover, we will also sign a contract stating that we will not use these sets against Zero Wing under any circumstances. Liu Wusheng greatly desired the ancient mana equipment sets. So long as Witch's Sin could acquire 40 of these sets like Mysterious Moon, it could afford to come into the spotlight and get everyone to acknowledge it as a superpower. Your offer is very tempting, Mr. Liu. However, Zero Wing no longer intends on selling these ancient mana equipment sets, so I'm afraid I will have to refuse your offer, Shifeng said, shaking his head. If 2 times is not enough, Witch's Sin can offer you 3 times, Liu Wusheng hurriedly said when he heard Shifeng's words. The price isn't the problem, Mr. Liu, Shifeng said. I've already said that Zero Wing will not sell those sets. However, if you really wish to partner with Zero Wing, I can offer Witch's Sin another option. What option? Liu Wusheng asked out of curiosity. Join Zero Wing's mercenary alliance and cooperate with Zero Wing in dealing with world dominators, Shifeng stated. Upon hearing Shifeng's suggestion, the corners of Liu Wusheng's mouth lifted slightly. Then, he shook his head and said, It's not that I doubt your strength, Mr. Black Flame, but there is no way you can win against world dominators. There is no benefit for Witch's Sin to do so, either. You need to know that Witch's Sin is an affiliated guild of world dominators. Shifeng wasn't surprised to hear Liu Wusheng rejecting his offer. Smiling, he asked, What if I give you and Witch's Sin's many Apex experts a significant chance at reaching Tier 6? If you find any errors, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 134, Basis of Partnership. Chapter 134, Basis of Partnership: A significant chance at reaching Tier 6? Liu Wusheng asked out of curiosity, his eyes widening a little when he heard Shifeng's words. I am not trying to doubt your abilities, Mr. Black Flame, but getting promoted to Tier 6 isn't something that can be accomplished with words alone. Even if I obtain a god legacy, my chances of reaching Tier 6 will only increase by a small margin. Reaching Tier 6 was the dream of all Tier 5 experts in God's domain. However, only an extremely small minority could achieve this dream. Meanwhile, the closer one got to Tier 6, the more they would realize just how challenging it was to reach Tier 6. The difficulty was so high that most people would despair when they learned of it. Upon hearing Shifeng's words, Blue Sheath similarly couldn't help but grow interested. Although she was nowhere near meeting the requirements to reach Tier 6 right now, if there was a way to increase her chances of reaching it, she naturally had to secure it as early as possible. Since I dare say so, I naturally have the ability to make it come true, Mr. Liu, Shifeng said with a faint smile. Moreover, shouldn't we only discuss these things after becoming partners? Yes, you're right, Mr. Black Flame, Liu Wusheng hurriedly said, realizing the blunder he made. He had accidentally revealed his true thoughts in front of Shifeng. Then, after calming himself, he continued, But if you talk about entering a partnership, shouldn't you show some sincerity first, Mr. Black Flame? After all, Witch's Sin is affiliated with world dominators. Without sufficient reason, how would we dare betray world dominators? Shifeng's smile deepened when he heard Liu Wusheng's suggestion. Then, he said, What you say is correct, Mr. Liu. It will indeed be difficult for you to decide to go against a super guild without sufficient benefits. Thank you for your understanding, Mr. Black Flame, Liu Wusheng said while caressing his beard. You might think that World Dominators isn't much for a super guild after seeing it lose to Mysterious Moon, but I can assure you that World Dominators is not as simple as it seems. If World Dominators wants to, it can destroy Mysterious Moon effortlessly. Even if Mysterious Moon has 40 primordial mana equipment sets, it will never be able to defend the Dark Moon outposts. However, Shifeng simply chuckled in response to Liu Wusheng's reminder. Nobody had a better understanding of the various superpowers and superguilds than him in this world. If he said he was number 2 when it came to such knowledge, nobody could say they were number 1. Meanwhile, as a veteran superguild, the strength and depth of world dominators were not things someone like Liu Wusheng could uncover. It was also why Shifeng had chosen to partner with Witch's Sin and form a mercenary alliance. Every guild that managed to become a superguild did not possess just powerful experts. Besides that, superguilds also had the ability to acquire strategic tools. Meanwhile, among these strategic tools, many originated from ancient times, and some even originated from primordial times. For most experts in God's domain, these strategic tools were completely out of their reach. They'd have to have heaven-defying luck to get their hands on even one of these items. However, for a super guild with countless experts, they could acquire these tools much more easily and reliably. Meanwhile, if a super guild decided to use one of these items, they could easily destroy an entire kingdom. This was exactly what had happened during Shifeng's previous life. When their god's domain connected with the greater god's domain and the various outerworld powers invaded, many super guilds used these strategic items to stall the various outerworld powers' advance. Many of these tools even allowed players to transcend tiers. The only problem was that these tools were consumables. Unless absolutely necessary, the various superguilds would use these tools. However, unlike what Shifeng was thinking, Liu Wusheng interpreted Shifeng's laugh differently. Contempt. From how Liu Wusheng looked at it, Shifeng was treating the world dominators he mentioned with contempt. Ignorant of Liu Wusheng's thoughts, Shifeng asked, "May I know if you have time to spare right now, Mr. Liu?" "We don't have anything going on for the moment," Liu Wusheng said, feeling a little confused by Shifeng's question. "Even if we do have something to do, its importance can't compare to negotiating a partnership with you, Mr. Black Flame. In that case, I wish to invite you to come to a place with me, Mr. Liu. Once we reach there, I will let you know that Witch's Sin will not lose out in partnering with Zero Wing," Shifeng said, chuckling. "If you have problems with this website, please continue reading your novel on our new website mynovelful.com. Thanks." Liu Wusheng naturally did not object to Shifeng's suggestion. He was rather curious why Shifeng was so confident Witch's Sin would be willing to join Zero Wing in opposing world dominators. Afterward, Liu Wusheng and Blue Sheath secretly followed Shifeng out of Hundred Flow City. After arriving inside a forest several kilometers away from Hundred Flow City, Shifeng took out a summoning flute and summoned his Thunder Wolf. Upon seeing the Thunder Wolf, Liu Wusheng and Blue Sheath couldn't help but be surprised. What a powerful mount! The strength of this mount already surpasses the average Great Lord, Blue Sheath exclaimed in the party chat. She promptly deduced the standard of the Thunder Wolf's strength with just a glance, and she couldn't help but look at the mount in admiration. It's a pity that there's still no clear way to obtain mounts in the miniature ancient world. If I can get a mount like this, my leveling speed will easily double. It seems Black Flame's foundations in the miniature ancient world aren't as simple as I thought. No wonder he managed to convince Mysterious Moon to go against world dominators, Liu Wusheng said, his evaluation of Shifeng increasing even further. Having a Great Lord as a mount might not seem special on the main continent, but this was a feat that even super guilds couldn't necessarily accomplish in the miniature ancient world. Get on. We have a long road ahead of us. If you have any business to take care of, it's best if you make the necessary arrangements now, Shifeng reminded after hopping onto the Thunder Wolf's back. However, Liu Wusheng and Blue Sheath simply smiled when they heard Shifeng's reminder. How far could they possibly travel? A Great Lord level mount's speed was several times higher than players. With the Thunder Wolf speed, it could easily reach any level 110 leveling spot around Hundred Flow City within 2 hours. However, after riding on the Thunder Wolf for some time, Liu Wusheng and Blue Sheath quickly realized that they were sorely mistaken. Not only did Shifeng cross level 110 maps, but he had even crossed level 115 maps. After advancing non-stop for 8 hours, they arrived at the Misty Canyon, a level 120 map that was essentially a forbidden area for current players. Meanwhile, after arriving in the Misty Canyon, Liu Wusheng and Blue Sheath saw something that blew their minds. A city. There was a city situated deep within the Misty Canyon. Moreover, many NPC merchants traveled in and out of the city's entrance. The NPC traffic here was only slightly inferior to the average NPC city. When Liu Wusheng saw this prosperous city, a frightening thought suddenly appeared in his mind. Unable to help his curiosity, he turned to Shifeng and asked, "Mr. Black Flame, don't tell me this city is..." Upon hearing Liu Wusheng's trembling voice, Shifeng smiled and said, "You've guessed correctly. Zero Wing is the owner of this abyssal star ancient city." TL notes, just defy. The term superpower refers to all organizations that are on the level of a superpower. It isn't limited to just guilds, super first-rate guilds and super guilds. So, adventurer teams, mercenary organizations, and whatever organization the author decides to come up with in the future can also fall under the category of superpowers. The 25th of March, 2022, made a change to Chapter 79, Twin-Headed Destruction Snake, Ancient Demonic Beast, Mythic, Twin-Headed Destruction Snake, Primordial Demonic Beast, Mythic. The 25th of March, 2022, further changes. Ancient Demon Court Primordial Demon Court Ancient Demon Primordial Demon Ancient Mana Equipment Set Primordial Mana Equipment Set Abyssal Star Ancient City Abyssal Star Primordial City Ancient Dark Gold Mount Primordial Dark Gold Mount Ancient Tower Primordial Tower Ancient Era, certain instances only, Primordial Era if you find any errors, broken links, non-standard content, etc. Please let us know so we can fix it as soon as possible. You're tuning in to the Celestial War YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories,